Have you ever lived with a monster? I have, since 15, and deciding on talking about this in a public video was huge, but I thought if it can help even a single person out there, it would be worth it. Good afternoon everyone, Nargis here. Welcome to my channel, especially my new subscribers. Thanks a lot for your support. I'll be looking forward to your comments and topic suggestions as well. Alright, my anxiety disorder, or is it? Let me begin with the is it part. Well, it's because I'm not 100% sure what it is, and not a single doctor gave me an explicit diagnosis, which I will cover in more detail later on. I just described the whole situation and you tell me what you think it is. Please do so, as it might help me and others as well. As I said, it was really difficult to decide for doing this video, not because I'm a private person or something like that. In fact, I'm a very high self-disclosing person and already share too much about myself too easily with people. But the reason was that I thought, hey, by doing this topic, I have to touch upon certain sensitive social and religious issues, which might get me into trouble. But at the end, I thought, okay, I'll do the topic, but try to be cautious, at least to some extent. However, I have to admit that in many of my previous videos, I've already expressed my honest opinion about many issues which could be problematic if certain people are watching. But let's be optimistic and keep our fingers crossed. All right, the problem. First, let me give you some background info about me and my family in this regard. My mom and her family are a little prone to be easily stressed about everything and fret about daily life. On the other hand, my dad is a very laid-back and even nonchalant person. Unfortunately, I'm more like my mom, and I remember I would feel a lot of anxious thoughts whenever I had exams back in junior high school. But when exactly did the problem start? Well, I was in my first year of senior high school, that would be like 9th grade, and we had a teacher who taught two subjects to us, Quran and religious studies, and would require like a full page reply to every question that she would give us on exams. And we had to take both exams on the same day within 3 hours. And even though I was really good a student and the subjects were quite easy, I was really stressed about the fact that the two were on the same day and we had to write pages and pages for the teacher. So it was eventually the exam day. I was doing quite well, writing frantically, until I noticed I had only 15 minutes left with 2 or 3 questions that required long answers. I remember I panicked so much. My heart was pounding, my body literally shaking, and I was writing with difficulty while crying my eyes out. Ironically, my grade was 20 out of 20 for both exams later on. So the exam came to the end, I went home, and that whole day, and especially at night, I was extremely anxious. My body was shaking again, my heart beating like crazy, and I couldn't eat. My parents took me to the emergency ward of a hospital. The doctor gave me a pill, which I don't remember, and told my parents that I had to see both a psychologist and a psychiatrist. And so began my difficult journey. What symptoms did I experience? An annoyingly racing heart, as I said, dry mouth, having difficulty swallowing food, loss of appetite, diarrhea, feeling something like a knot in my stomach, considerable loss of concentration, insomnia, extreme restlessness, and a general feeling of weakness in my body. What about feelings? Well, I couldn't cry, which was something I really needed. Nothing could give me pleasure. I couldn't watch a movie. I couldn't eat even the food that I liked. And my favorite songs, everything was like a torture. And also daily chores, the simplest tasks would seem difficult, impossible, or even scary. Something as simple as taking a shower. and it was very difficult for me to walk. I just wanted to lie down or lay down, however you say it. And whenever I did, restlessness would make me jump out of the bed. I remember all those horrifying sleepless nights when I would walk around the house, drowned in my sick, anxious thoughts. Another aspect of this disease or disorder or whatsoever was that the simplest problems me and my family had and weren't that important suddenly seemed huge and occupied my mind all the time in a sick, never-ending cycle. I saw different psychologists and psychiatrists, and I remember I would beg them to please tell me what the hell was wrong with me, which they didn't, and I don't know why. They just prescribed pill after pill, and I think the patient has a right to know. Even if I have cancer, I prefer to know. I still don't know why they wouldn't give me a diagnosis. Maybe it was the medical policy at that time, or maybe they thought I was too young. But the fact that they didn't tell me a name or didn't give me an explicit diagnosis made me feel much worse. The entire problem that I just described has always been within me, like a sleeping monster which would wake up at certain times or with certain triggers, which I will cover later on. However, the next year, that is the second year of senior high school or 10th grade, my problem changed, or rather expanded, to include hypochondria, which is obsessive thoughts about the imagined symptoms of one or several diseases. I remember I would read about any disease, for example, cancer, and I would feel that I either had all the symptoms or they were kind of developing inside me. And believe me, zero sex education at school or on my mom's part helped my anxiety shoot through the roof, because I had this now laughable misunderstanding and worry about something, and at that time I didn't have a mobile or a computer to Google everything as we do nowadays. You might say, well, you could ask. Well, yeah, I gathered all my courage to ask my mom, but I remember she didn't even let me finish my question, got extremely angry, and long story short, I went from 8 pills a day to 11. By the way, years later, I reminded mom about the whole situation, and she didn't even remember what had happened and what she had done to me without she wanting it. But I told her that I will never forgive her for that. Yet another aspect of the problem was that I was religious, or at least more religious, at that time, and I remember I would beg God to please bestow my death upon me. And honestly, I considered suicide as well, but in Islam they tell you that is one of the worst sins you can commit, and I was horrified by the thought and would ask for God's forgiveness, and this guilt, this religious guilt, made everything much worse. During all those months, of course, I had some days when I would feel a little less horrible, but generally speaking, those were some of the darkest times of my life. The next year at school was much worse. I wasn't doing well with my studies, was absent from school quite often, and had gained a lot of weight because of all those medications. Then came the final year of high school, or pre-uni as we called it. I was feeling and doing much better, and I decided to change my course of studies. I was a maths and physics student, but I turned towards foreign languages, which was one of the best decisions of my life. And fast forward to this moment. Since that time, this disease has hit me at least a dozen times, and each time it will take at least 2 weeks before I feel normal again. And it has levels, from a so-called mild version, which is still hell, to straight to severe, to what I call much more severe, when every breath would be like torture and I'd be constantly suicidal. The last time this much more severe version has hit me, which is still not the worst that I have experienced, was exactly a year ago, November 2019, when I was literally Googling effective and painless suicide methods. And the only reason I'm still here talking to you guys is that I couldn't find one because I was afraid of both pain and ending up not dead and instead on a wheelchair or something for the rest of my life, which was a much worse nightmare. Okay, after that long description, let me tell you what my triggers are. One, whenever I'm facing several problems at the same time, especially when I cannot do anything about one or several of them, there will be a high chance of an anxiety attack. Two, which is mostly related to the past, religion. I remember this stupid relative once told me, look, this problem is all because your faith isn't strong enough, because if you trust God, then what do you have anxiety for? And I know that she wanted to help, but it was absolutely counterintuitive because I thought, oh my God, she's right, I'm this terrible, sinful person. Thank God all those times are gone and I'm not a religious person anymore and I feel much better. What? The scarf? Because I have to. 3, boys. I already made a video about Iranian marriage traditions and the problems related to it. And also consider the fact that my parents are religious and what they want for me marriage-wise is not what I want and vice versa. So I always try to avoid this formal family dates or khastegari as we call them. You might say, well, don't listen to them. You're a grown-up and live your independent life and do as you please. Well, easier said than done, of course. First of all, due to the financial situation here in Iran, which I described in another video, I still live with my parents. And although I don't get any money from them anymore, it's their house and their rules. And even if I could afford it, it wouldn't be easy to leave, as it's kind of stigmatized over here and few single girls manage to live a completely independent life, even when they have the financial means to. So every time I'm literally forced to meet one of these guys, there would be a high chance of an anxiety attack because there would be much to be worried about and concerned about. For example, it wouldn't be easy to talk to a relatively religious Iranian boy about my honest beliefs, or lack thereof. Also, this very disease would be a major issue. Should I talk about it? Well, why would I talk about something so deep to somebody who I've just met and I don't know I'm going to like or marry? On the other hand, if I don't talk about it on the first few dates, I would feel this enormous guilt because let me be honest with you guys, when it comes to marriage, women are treated by most men here like they're some stuff to be bought that should be in a good condition. So altogether, I try to avoid this whole marriage thing as much as I can. Now, what can help me, which might also be considered as my advice to people who suffer from something like this, which I hope is 0 people. A. Prevention as much as possible by 1. Omega-3 supplements, 2. Exercise, which I did regularly until I developed this chronic back pain and was banned from exercise by my doctor. 3. Herbal teas such as chamomile, which are believed to have a soothing effect. 4. Daily meditation, which I've been doing for the last year or so on apps like Headspace and Calm. 5. Avoiding fights or quarrels. This is a problem I usually have at home rather than outside because everyone would tell you I'm this very kind, considerate and caring person, which I am. But at home and with my parents, I'm a monster, which is shameful. Sometimes it's them who push my monster buttons, but generally I consider myself very terrible at anger management at home. And every time I had a fight or quarrel with them, there would be a high chance of an anxiety attack. 6. Being prepared for everything as much as I can. For example, whenever I go shopping, I try to buy everything in larger amounts or quantities so that if my anxiety hits, I don't have to worry about shopping. You heard me right. Even something like shopping, which I really enjoy, would be very difficult or impossible in an anxiety situation. And B, which is something that can help me while anxiety is with me, is forcing myself to function as much as possible. As I said, when anxiety hits me, it would be extremely difficult to do pretty much anything. But I try to do as much as I can because lagging behind would further exacerbate the situation because I would worry and fret about all the work that is piling up. Now, let's see what you can do to help someone who suffers from anxiety. 1. Don't say these 2 sentences to them. Take it easy and just cheer up. Are you kidding me? Of course they're trying to cheer up. Of course they want to cheer up. It's not a choice, it's a disease. 2. Give them some banana and a little dark chocolate, above 80%, please. 3. Force them to take a walk with you. But why force? Because they're feeling terrible and extremely low energy, and therefore they will probably say no. But please don't take no for an answer. 4. Again, force them to accept your help with anything you can take care of. For example, clean and tidy their room for them. In my case, when anxiety hits me, I cannot clean, and then I would be extremely anxious about the mess and the fact that I cannot take care of it. 5. Give them hugs or even massages and hold their hands, even if they're stone cold at that moment. I know how it feels, guys. I'm a very emotional person, but under anxiety attack, I'm like a piece of rock, and I would love it if someone could understand this and give me a warm, non-judgmental hug. My family? No, they're absolutely useless in this regard. Mental health problems need to be talked about, especially in countries like mine where they're still stigmatized to a great extent, even by the so-called open-minded people who would tell you to hide it from others or not take the medications you need. Whereas I think increased understanding and shared knowledge about these issues will help us have healthier, happier societies. I wish you all great, happy, healthy moments. Take care of yourself and see you in my next video. Goodbye.